Hi. So for the first time on this channel, we are outside of my apartment and outside of the city of Oslo. This is the first video on this channel where we're not gonna be bothered by my pet budgies screaming in the background. So this is very informal, it's just three of us in a nice cabin by the sea, and we're gonna see what we capture. I don't have a plan, I don't have a deadline or any assignment on this. It's just me documenting our time and creating memories. We're gonna, of course, for the channel have a focus on visual narration and how we tell the story of this weekend through pictures. So stick around, it's gonna be cool. So this is day one. We just got here a couple hours ago. We unpacked and we took a trip around the cabin to see what the surroundings have to offer us. I know there's a beautiful sunset going on, but we're making dinner inside, so I'm not going to take advantage of that, sadly. But tomorrow we start shooting. Hey, so this is the morning of the second day. And if I'm thinking about the narration in my photo essay, remember we're trying to make a story here. The way a lot of stories start is by setting up the location, the place. Think about one of the most famous movie franchises of all time starts with a long time ago in a galaxy far away. So where are we here? We're not in a galaxy far away. We're at some country house. So let me show you a wide view of the garden and think about what you do with that. You can see it's a big yard. We can play on the isolation of the house, make it, as small as possible in the frame. We can put a foreground to put it in the context of nature, and the wilderness of all that range around us. But I don't have a very wide lens with me because I wanted to travel light. What I did is I took an interest in the sandbox. Of course, there's a rule of composition that it's nice to put something in the foreground, but again, here today we're thinking about narration, and this tells something that children grew up here, but it was a while ago. That's to my friend who invited us. This is his childhood memories, and it's a place where he had a lot of happy summers with the brothers and whatnot. So I'm including it in my opening shot, presenting the location. So the next thing we did was to take a walk to the next town. For that we had to cross the forest that surrounds this neighborhood. I got a picture of the mailboxes at the entrance of the neighborhood because it's a nice practical detail. Gives you an idea of how many houses are around ours and how isolated they are, and the fact that the mailman doesn't come all the way there. I'm not a landscape photographer. I don't get inspired by nature or forests, at least like it doesn't tickle my visual bone. But I did notice that the harsh middle of the day sunlight was casting some really strong shadows of the trees, and I tried to use that as leading lines for a composition. And then of course I had to get a picture of my friends for our storytelling purpose. We need to have our characters and we need to see what they do. Eventually we made it to this beautiful seaside fishing village, and it had a really strong Edward Hopper vibe going on with those wooden houses and this late in the day sun. It was very quiet. We're off season and there's still a lot of people isolating because of the coronavirus outbreak here in Norway. So we had the streets to ourselves, which, tends to lead you towards very straight compositions and very formal pictures. If there were people to fill the frame, I think I would be shooting in a more spontaneous and more street photography kind of way. What I did notice is that the people of this village were super anal about the way they keep their houses and their yards. Everything was so well maintained and so straight. And my reaction to this was to take those very straight on, deadpan, geometrical pictures that really displayed their obsession for perfection. And then I found this yard which is made of rocks, and it was such a contrast to all the neighboring yards of perfectly kept grass. I wish I would have worked that picture more. I only took one frame of this and I think it deserved more. When we made it to the tip of the peninsula and this tiny lighthouse, it was very windy and Astrid was miserable and cold. She went to hide behind the lighthouse, which is the kind of moments you have to document because that's what makes the meat of your story, those little moments. I also cut a more normal portrait. Tough light, complicated to expose for. Also, if you're gonna have the sea and the horizon in the picture, you better get it straight. So it's after dinner and my friends are enjoying a drink. I figure it's a good time to start taking some pictures. As you can see, the light comes from this spot of the room. So I'm gonna put myself in a position where I don't get in the way of my light. I think here I get the most drama with the light coming to the back and from the side. It's also, if I'm here, it's also the place I'm gonna have the cleanest backgrounds and the view on the outside. I'm avoiding all the mess that's here or the visual clutter of this part of the room. So now it's just a matter of making them forget how awkward I'm being and take some pictures. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
So that was how I chose where to be in the room, and now this is how I worked the scene. The first two pictures I took were just to fine-tune my exposure because I'm working in manual. And then I'm just waiting for them to forget that I'm taking pictures and relax. First they watched a YouTube video for a few minutes, and at some point this happened. The sun got so low in the horizon that it started to reach Hover's face. That's when I really have to start shooting. So now I bring her back into composition and I wait for the right gesture. I realized that I liked it when she had the glass raised because it gave a really clean area on the table and a good symmetry between their faces. So I started shooting every time she raised the glass until I captured the right moment. I'm happy how this turned out. I'm a color photographer, but I also made a black and white edit of this one to show you that when you have a nice dramatic light, it can work with either. After that, the sun was setting and the light got really gorgeous, so Astrid and I seized the opportunity and we went to the forest that surrounds the house and had a little portrait session. And then we walked a bit further towards the sea and we found that beautiful tree. I took a picture, but I'm really not a nature photographer. So what inspired me was the way that Astrid's hair in the wind was kind of mimicking the red branches of the tree. So I got a picture of that. So I just took some pictures of Astrid crossing this nice forest, and I was thinking something I want to tell you guys is that the story of this weekend is just three friends having fun, eating meals, drinking beers. You don't need a big event to have something worth photographing. You don't need any drama in a photo story. What we want to remember in 2 or 3 years when we look back at the pictures is just a nice time that we had and a weekend of peace in the middle of our agitated and busy lives. And I think that's a mistake that we all do when we start out, is that we think we need to have an event, we think something spectacular has to happen to be worth photographing. And that's how you end up maybe buying a macro lens because you don't see what's happening in front of you. So you're like, maybe I need to be photographing the microscopic, or maybe I need a super long lens, go in the forest and photograph the birds. Don't ignore the very normal stuff that's happening around you. Just wait for the light to get good and just photograph your normal life. It's what's worth photographing, really. And to conclude this video, let's have a look at the photo essay I put together to illustrate this weekend in a cabin with my friends. There are 6 types of pictures you use in a photo essay, so you can look at those and try to figure out which category they fall into. The location shot, also called the master in cinema or the wide shot, is here to show you where the action or the story is happening. The portrait is here to show you who are the characters in the story. The action shot is the characters doing what it is that they do in your story. The detail shot, which can be another way to illustrate a part of your story. The flair shot, which is where you, as an author, show your own visual flair and style. And the transition shot, which is used to signal to your audience that you're moving on to a different location or point in time or aspect of your story. That was it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you some other time about another topic. Cheers.